Good morning, Executive Insight listeners. Today is an exciting day. We're joined by a seasoned senior IT leader with decades of experience in the food and beverage industry. So this morning, I'd like to welcome Sergio Rio. Sergio, welcome to the Executive Insight Podcast. How are you today, sir?
Hi, good morning, John. Thanks for having me here.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad that you're here to join us. Let's jump right in. Sergio, you've been an executive within this industry for the last several decades. I guess this coming year, 2019, what are the top three challenges your industry you think will be facing in an upcoming year?
The food and beverages industry, John, has been expanding operating margins from productivity and cost savings. Over the past year, the consumer preferences have changed significantly, and the retailers are more demanding. And so, the whole industry now is stepping up investments to sustain sales growth. Sales growth, is the top priority for the food and beverage industry this year. And to drive sales growth, what this whole industry is doing is focusing on product innovation. That's, the challenge that all of those companies have been facing, particularly in the health and wellness area. They're still optimizing the supply chain, John, but now, the objective is not only to improve efficiencies to reduce costs, but also, to deliver, faster, right, and deliver a better, consumer experience. And third, I would say that, leverage data to strengthen consumer insights. So there's a lot of investment being done in emerging technologies or updating the existing technologies, right, to really leverage data. So the companies in the food and beverage, domain, they are, hiring, leveraging data scientists, forecasting tools, in order to sustain the sales growth, John.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an evolution happening within your industry. I think IT leaders and information security leaders are now tasked not just to become a top technologist, but really as a business leader as well, right? Understanding what your implementations really affect the bottom line, not just in consumer growth, but also in company and business growth, which is really interesting because it kind of ties into this whole notion around digital transformation. I've heard and seen a lot of topics around digital transformation, but within the food and beverage industry, Sergio, have you seen a massive influx and strategy planning around digital transformation?
Well, I could say that all the industries are doing that now. Have been doing it for the past months. And most of that, John, is because, in the past we used to use technology to run our business, and now technology is our business, right? So, for example, the adoption of a Internet of Things, right? So more and more integrating the manufacturing processes, distribution processes, and getting that data has been a major area of investment for companies like that. Integrating that data with AI, machine learning, there's a lot of investment being done that. And with the social media, right? So now, with the digital transformation companies are leveraging more and more social media to understand what the consumers, what they want, when they want, right? To provide them with a better, customer experience.
Perfect. And I think around that trend, a lot of folks are looking at emerging technologies to really grow their businesses. You know what? I'm curious, Sergio. Mm-hmm. If there's a role within technology, blockchain is a topic that's top of mind for everybody. Does blockchain technologies run a big play within the food and beverage industry?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, John. Particularly in the food industry, and there's one use case that has been, has gotten a lot of attention, which is the product traceability. Because we all consumers, we want to know, right? The product that we're buying, where those ingredients, where did they come from? How they were processed, where they were processed, right? So they want to know exactly, from the farm, right, to the table, all the actors, all the operations, who was involved in transforming those raw ingredients into the product that the consumers are having with their families. So blockchain is one of the key technologies that can facilitate, the product traceability. And leveraging the distributed ledgers technology, right? IBM is a big player in that market, as many other companies are doing it. And more food industries are getting together with their suppliers, to leverage blockchain to do that. So we definitely, and in particularly here in the U.S., there's the Groceries Manufacturers Association. They have been having this smart labeling initiative to allow consumers, at the point of sales or in their homes, with a barcode to know exactly where, the product came from, the ingredients. So combining, initiatives like that, the smart labeling, with blockchain, that's one of the major disruptors, I would say, in this industry this year and next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting to see how the evolution of the technology leader also applies within their vendor management, right? You mentioned IBM and a lot of these big players out there. I think it seems like you're one of the more progressive technology leaders, that you see your vendors as a partner as opposed to just a solution. I guess within the industry, right, everybody knows the big players out there. What do you see as the next big technology disruptor in your industry?
Well, two things here I think are important. As you said, technology companies, they are partners. So developing, a long-term relationship with them, leveraging their technologies, intellectual property to the benefit of the business, well, that's critical. That's not, cannot be anymore a one-time transaction, but it's really, integrating their technologies, integrating their capabilities with our business. And in that specific regard, in terms of the disruptive technologies, I would stress, artificial intelligence and machine learning, in addition to the blockchain. We're already talking about blockchain. The application is not in those moonshot, cases. We will get there pretty soon, having, solutions helping doctors, in their diagnosis or doing more sophisticated things that humans can do. But more and more, we will see, particularly in the food and beverage industry, right? AI embedded, in the mobile apps, in devices, at the point of sales, right? So machine learning, when it's applied to those specific use cases that are simple, right, in terms of complexity, they will deliver, right, these the low-hanging fruits that we're expecting in the consumer goods industry in this year and next year, John.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think you've hit this absolutely spot on, especially with how the industry is moving within the emerging technologies. AI, machine learning, was not a technology that we initially looked at 5-10 years ago, but fast forward to 2019, it's more of a reality for most industries, not just in the food and beverage industry. Well, I want to kind of cap off the podcast here, Sergio, with one last question for you. You've had the opportunity to meet the top executives within your industry in multiple verticals, and you've had the pleasure of working with some of the top technology vendors and solution providers out there. I guess in terms of your ideal business meeting, how would you propose that, or how do you think is the best interaction within your solution provider organizations that you network with?
Wow, yeah, that's critical, right, to develop, a long-term relationship. So the ideal business meeting, that I would describe is really having a clear agenda and objectives first. That's critical. Having the right people on board. It could be, physically present, or, attending remotely. That's another thing that I appreciate in productive meetings with the technology partners. But talking about the partnership, right, which is the key component of this, to be very productive in this partnership, it's very important to have candid and open conversations, right? about, the agenda, the objectives, short-term, long-term objectives, and focus on the outcomes. So not only on what we are doing now, the projects, the initiatives, the specific, service levels, performance, all the financial aspects of the relationship or the technology that they're bringing, but also focus on the outcome. So a very successful meeting, with technology suppliers, partners, you got to be really focused on the outcomes, business outcomes. So what we're looking for. So when finishing that conversation, John, when we all, we leave the meeting with a clear understanding of the outcomes that we have achieved or the ones that we are achieving through that conversation, that meeting, that agenda, that for me is the most important component.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that nice insight there, Sergio. You have been fantastic. This has been invaluable, not just for us, but I know for a lot of our listeners. Your insight and, more importantly, your experience is something to treasure. So, Sergio, thank you for jumping in and joining us today at Executive Insights.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, that's it, folks. Another great, successful podcast from a seasoned executive. I'd like to say thank you again to Sergio for joining us for the podcast. But that is it today. As always, at the tech table, you guys always have a seat with us. Thank you, folks. Have a fantastic 2019.